Second. Here we are. Good morning and welcome.
Ready, set, go. Coming to you live, it's the AutoHub show with Ian and Jeff. Here we go.
So what would your dealership feel like if your entire sales staff was literally on fire, your sales and service staff? They were nonstop all over social media, completely dominating your marketplace. They could do it in 30 days or less, and they continue their education to do it for an entire 6 months or a year. You literally would completely take over the entire marketplace and no one would be able to compete with you. And that's what we can do for you. So when you're walking around your community, whether you're at local restaurants or you're going to the gym, you don't want to be bothered? Fine, you won't be bothered. But a lot of people will walk up to you and say, oh my God, I love your social media. Your staff is amazing. We love what you're doing in the community. We want to come buy a car from you. We want to get an oil change at your dealership. Your community is absolutely going to love you. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could be on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. You will literally be all over the place. I've traveled all over North America. I've trained Toyota. I've trained Nissan. I've been to driving sales. I've been to Women in Auto. I get hired as a speaker for conferences at universities all over the country. And I can help change the trajectory of your dealership right now. If you click on the link, you can sign up for our webinar. It's live with me, and you'll learn the 7 strategies that you need at your dealership in order to see that success.
Hi everyone, this is Paul Brobson, the CEO over at Trusted Sale. And if you don't know Larry Feldman at Career Changers, boy, are you missing out. Now, what are you missing, you might ask? Well, for starters, you're missing the world's best trainer. But seriously, what makes Larry a great trainer is how engaged he keeps his audience. I was at a store recently while Larry was conducting training. And let me tell you, nobody wanted to leave that room. I mean, even when they needed a bio break, they wanted to stick around and hear what Larry had to say. The great late Jim Valvano, who said, to me, there are 3 things everyone should try to do every day. Number 1 is let. Number 2 is think. Spend some time in thought every day. And number 3, you should have your emotions move you to tears. If you laugh, think, and cry, that's a heck of a day. Well, I can tell you, Larry's going to make you laugh. He's going to make you think. And yeah, every once in a while, he's going to make you shed a tear or 2. But one thing I can say, it's a heck of a day when Larry comes to visit. But wait, there's more. There is. Yeah. Not only is Larry a great trainer, but he's also one hell of a recruiter. So if you need people in your dealership, I mean anyone, you need technicians, salespeople, managers, BBC agents, whatever you need, Larry can get you staffed right with the right people and do it fast.
Ways to improve. Every month we want to improve better on what we did the month before, maybe the year before. It's about how fast we can get the cars done with quality work to get it to the front line, because that's where we make our money. And the bottom line is, the longer it takes, the more money we spend. We want to get it down as low as possible. Right now, I like to say we're in a great state. We're at 4.5 days. In recon, we want to know how quickly we can get the cars out of the recon process and to the front line. The average days in recon, and then the time to line are the most important thing to be. I'm Mike Burrell, I'm the Service Director at JM Lexus.
Good morning and welcome. So, as we get back from obviously back to normal with the with back in the car business and ending the year, we had some interesting news last week. As anyone who saw the show earlier on or saw the initial video knows, Hyundai made a big announcement, I think at the LA Auto Show. But before we get into it, we got to go through our slide deck. I missed a step. Here we go. So I picked a couple books. And really kind of, I guess, in kudos to to Amazon, being that it's about customer experience, as we all know in the car business. And Amazon has proved to us that maybe we need to focus a little more on that, being that they seem to be entering the car business. Hug Your Haters from Jay Bear, Uncommon Service, and Be Our Guest from Disney Corporation as part of their Disney Institute. Go ahead, Jeff.
Chief, so I guess I won't keep everybody entertained with my own version of Be Your Guest, the song. So good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you being here. This is kind of a special show. It's not of our normal shows. This one's kind of just getting over the show hangovers from all the shows that we've had. But it's a great topic because the timing's really good. But before we get into it, before we go on record as hating Hyundai, hating AVs, hating everybody else, or love it, the opinion shared that today are those of our guests, and not necessarily that of the AutoHub show or Jeff, maybe Ian, but not Jeff. Not Ian and Jeff. Okay. Ian.
Fantastic. So as I was thinking about the show today, I was coming up with the Need You show. And the reason is, I know we've all had some discussions around digital retail and the internet over the last several years. I know the internet isn't new to auto, and I know digital retail isn't a new idea, but it sounds like the manufacturer is starting to say, well, we got to push people more into that digital retail. If you're not going to do it, maybe someone else, not naming any names, will want to do it. So I think that's what really pushed this Amazon piece. Whether or not that's going to do what they think, we don't know. It's going to be starting next year, from what I understand, probably in the U.S. market to start, but nobody knows. But go ahead, Jeff. Maybe we can get some thoughts from some of our guests on what their thoughts are, not mine.
You betcha. Well, today's interesting because it's whomever's on is a guest. So I will just ask as we go down the list, as I see those smiling faces there. Oh my God. Hi, Sarah. Hi, April. It's a thrill to have you guys here. Larry, how you doing? By the way, we got to talk about the sinus infection here, because you were just a major spreader there. But just yeah, Larry.
Wow.
You start a week and he goes, "Don't worry, guys, don't worry. I'm not contagious." That was in the hospital, and no big deal. Not to worry. Anyways, so very interesting. This is the Need You show. A really weird thing, but we need you to tell us what the heck's going on. So I'm looking at my collection of people here. We'll start with the order of logging in, and just say hi. Many of you, actually, all of you need no introduction because you're just like super special people. But so answer the first question. I'm going to start with Peter. The industry needs what right now? Because we're making everybody wait for the giant elephant in the room about Hyundai.
Well, thanks for calling me first, putting me on the spot. But I would say the industry in itself needs a fundamental change in their thought process. It's an issue that has reared its ugly head many times. That oh no, we're not going to go down that route. Well, we did, or we're not going to go down that road. Oh well, we did, and we always are in the position where we're playing catch up to what the focus in retail is all about. And we need to embrace change and develop ways to get ahead of the curve rather than reactive to it.
That's a very good point. Very good point. Thank you. And Mr. Doug Reeves, you were number 2.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Happy to be back. In my mind, I boiled it down to 2 things. I think dealerships and the industry needs to focus on technology and process. When you look at the things that's coming out down the road, you have EVs that are obviously being thrust upon us. That it's going to require more education. It's going to require a lot more time with consumers. You have expenses going up. You have grosses going down. You have turnover returning. You have the advent of CDPs and AI and every other typical, every other initial thing coming in. And when you conglomerate it all together, it comes down to 2 things. Dealerships need to get their processes really tight, because as prices come down, it's going to be a competitive market, and you better be able to stand out. And along those lines, with all the technologies coming in, You better find the right stack, eliminate some unnecessary stuff, and be able to let the technology power the process and not take the place of people.
Interesting.
That's very, very deep. And now, of course, we're going to go to the dealer in the room. The great April Simmons from the greater Phoenix area, probably has the greatest weather, period, anywhere right now.
Right
And
now,
the best
right now.
personality, right now. Yeah, we don't
Last
want to
couple months, not so much, but right now for sure. Personally, and I probably go against the grain with this, but I think we way overcomplicate the car business. And I think more so now, everyone's jumping in to overcomplicate things. And before we go into talking about technology or any of the acronyms that are out there, you need to make sure that your salespeople are prepared to provide good customer service. Not necessarily even the customer experience we always talk about, but just the basics in customer service. And this isn't a car business thing. This is a everywhere, I don't care what business you're dealing with thing. And that needs to be changed and handled first before any of this other stuff will even work, make sense, or be applicable.
That's it. Well, you know what? That's a great point, because we seem to forget that. And every time you go to a seminar, every time you go to a conference, there's these great people that are sitting up front there, and they're talking, and they're doing all this stuff, and they're all sharing one very, very big thing: acronyms.
Mm-hmm.
You know, CVPs and AEPs, REPs and PRDMs and everything else. And I don't know the last time a customer walked into a dealership and said, "Oh, the only letters I remember was a UP." And it's very true. But that's a very, very, very great viewpoint. Thank you so much.
I was on the VDP. What's the SRP? And I was angry.
Oh man, yeah, SOP. The SOP is you got to run your VDPs, and then you get your PPVs, and oh wow, all I want to think is YMCA. So next, Sarah, I'm going to call on you because I'm going to keep Larry waiting here. Sarah, what do you think? What does the industry need right now? And thanks for joining us. I know you had a heck of a time clicking in there.
Yeah, I was just on another Zoom meeting right before this, and for some reason in between that one and this one, I could not get the audio to connect. But we're here now, so everything's good.
It must have been a AEP or something like this.
Well, this is a really timely topic because I think it's been something we've been, and with my company and myself, we've been talking about this for a long time. Even on the show that we were talking about, the purchase experience of one of my family members. So it's really timely because one of the things that you'll find online is a lot of comments and discussion from individuals about their car buying experience. And so, for example, on a recent Reddit post, there's a Reddit forum called Ask Car Sales. And there was an individual that was asking this question, again, anonymously to the community, but they asked the question, do dealers purposefully waste time? And it was really an interesting discussion because what they were asking, they were trying to buy a Lexus at a dealership. They had done their due diligence in their digital retailing, gone through all these widgets on their website, had gathered all of this information virtually. But then when they came in to take delivery, it took 2 hours for the car to come out of storage. It took another hour and a half for them to get the finance. And then it took another 2 hours of back and forth, leaving them because they didn't want the paint protection and all of these addendums that happened during that. And so, long story short, the customer bought the car, but it took 5 hours for them to complete that whole experience. And one of the questions they were asking was, well, do they purposely waste time so we get exhausted and ultimately cave? And I think it's such a relevant conversation because so many people were echoing that same experience. Like, yeah, if you're going to a car dealership, you're there all day. You're going to be sitting and waiting around all day. And the reality is some of the conversations we're having around Amazon and all these other purchase experiences, the word that comes to mind is easy. That's a situation where someone gets into a purchase transaction and it's easy. They get completely through the process at their speed. And if it's time savings, if it's convenience, whatever the benefits of it is, ultimately it makes their whole experience easier. And so I think as an industry, that's what we got to be talking about is how do we create those experiences to stay relevant in the customer's buying decision? It's all going to be about how easy we make it.
And Jeff,
It's very interesting because, you know, the fact is that, just wave at me if you can see me. My screen might be frozen here.
Jeff, maybe you could talk a little bit about our experience with Tao Che, which if you don't know about these guys, they're coming to North America. They're funded by a small company called JV.com, which is a competition to Alibaba, if you're not familiar with the name. And we interviewed them at Used Car Week, and the interview's up if you want to check it out. They had some very interesting thoughts on North American car market, and they took some jabs at some of the names you'd be familiar with, but it was a very interesting interview. Maybe Jeff can talk a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, we'll just touch very quickly on it, but typical Chinese is because they come here to take from us. And I put a post out about last week about Chinese cars and about this interview of these people. And, you know, we're in the States, they're saying, well, we're not going to have Chinese cars because, you know, they're not this and that. But they're coming through Mexico and they're everywhere in Mexico. And there's some nice cars. And interestingly enough, the best description to have on it is I took a picture of an MG SUV that looked like a BMW X7. And the model was an RX-8. So it's very interesting. That's just what they do. These guys, you know, their idea is to learn what we have and then fix on what we have and then take it over because they met with Carvana, they met with CarMax, and then they're there to meet off dealers. And their jab is basically is they want to make us better, but they want to make themselves better and then tell us what we're doing. But last but not least, I turn to the final question is Larry, and I may just mute him, but you never know. But and by the way, I was with Larry. Do not talk about the fact that the guy from Hyundai had to be cut short because of Biden's broadcast. Don't say a word because if you do, I control the mute button. Larry, right now.
Well, here's the interesting thing. I've seen the same doom and gloom comments that you have. And here's the good news / bad news. We could have been having the same discussion 30 years ago or 50 years ago. The people that know how to take care of their customers and be considerate and are prepared, cut down on the time and make it a pleasant experience, get repeat referral business, get rich and have fun. And the idiots that don't hurt our industry. Okay, I remember when Tesla started doing direct deliveries. Oh my God, it's over. I remember in 2008-9 when they decided, they called up dealers and said, you've done a great job, you're out of business. We're going to continue to move forward. And the people that are smart and understand that each customer is important and that they're not an annoyance, but that they're an annuity are going to roll. I got to tell you, everybody knows I'm a little mentally unstable. But I've been operating the same the minute I walked into a dealership. I do what I'm supposed to do when I'm supposed to do it. I answer calls and I try to make people smile when they see me. What's complicated about that? And listen, okay, great. Jeff Bezos is going to deliver your Hyundai. Is he going to help you when your Hyundai needs service? There's so many things here that just open the door to us and make this even better and make this even smarter. And I wonder, I've been reading, Jeff, that they're constantly hijacking Amazon trucks. I wonder now if they'll be carjacking your car delivery. So there's a lot of variables here, but it still comes back to doing this job the right way, appreciating your customers, being professional. And I think in 10 years, we'll still be talking about 10 or 12 other variants, but I think we're just going to be fine.
Well, I have to tell you, that's an extremely good point. And this goes back to you, Doug, Peter. We've been in the business a long time. April and Sarah are way too young to be in this business that long. But this goes back to how we dealt with competition. The person that came into us and took 6 hours of our time and bought from the dealer down the street for $100 less. And what do? We say, congratulations, Bring your car to me for service. I couldn't earn your business there, but let me wow you in the back end. That's what it boils down to. Because, we have our beliefs, and it sounds like from what this guy said in the video, because our next question Ian's going to ask is going to point right into this. But they're going to be directed to a dealer, and they're going to deal with the dealer.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
Amazon.
let me just add on a couple quick points to these what has been said here. I agree with Sarah 100%. The consumer perception is that we're there to wear them down. We're there to extend the process. And in fact, we'd rather have you in and out the door as fast as possible. We don't want to have you there for 5 hours. We want you in 5 minutes if possible. And we'll run around the showroom screaming our heads off if we can do that. Because that's an anomaly and we celebrate it. So it's with the Amazon theory of making it easy, I look back to Doug's product and say the one person, one model is the best model and the fastest model. And you look at the dealers that are representative of this product saying one person, one vehicle, 1 hour, and they're out. And that's where they succeed. So I'm looking at Amazon could potentially be absolutely phenomenal. The other side of it is when we talk about losing the sale at the front end and then saying, come on back to the dealership at the back end and we'll service the death out of you. It's because people don't understand that the service is the absorption of the dealership. They are the ones that provide 100% absorption. And that's what we've directed to. And the front end is just the gravy. So
here's the interesting thing. And Sarah, I'm sure this never came up in the chat, is that the reason that it takes so darn long is you got poorly trained people who are desperately trying to make some money. And if somebody says no to the paint, the ceramic coat, maybe I can get them on the warranty. And if they don't do that, my last gasp effort in F&I is to try and get insurance, but they're not going to buy it. But I got to try because I'm going to get a meeting here in about a week, and they're going to talk about KPIs, and they're going to tell me how poorly I did. Meanwhile, the car is sitting in the storage because they weren't sure they were going to make a deal on them, and why waste their time pulling it out of the storage lot? And before we go to the next question, Sarah, what happened to the Lexus, the relentless pursuit of perfection?
Right.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean that, and you nailed it. I mean, really, that's the interesting thing that I think a lot of times in dealerships get, and I've heard this said so many different times recently. Everyone's talking about getting back to basics. That's the words. Everybody says like it's time to get back to basics. But if you really dig into what that means, it's like, okay, let's ask a dealership. What does that mean? Typically what that usually means, and I'm going to be completely blunt about it, what that usually means is we're going to sit back and we don't know what to do. We're going to yell at our people and tell them, make things different. We're getting back to basics, but nothing actually changes in processes. Nothing changes culturally, and nothing changes in terms of what is actually helping your customer be a better customer or being an advocate for your customers. So that's
Sarah,
the
you're saying
conversation.
that we're basically outfielders in baseball.
Yes. And so it's important when we're talking about training, service and sales in a customer's mind, it's the same thing. They don't look at it and go, well, the service department is responsible for this component of my car, and the parts department is responsible for this thing, and service is responsible for this, and a BDC or the receptionist is responsible for this other stuff. They look at it and they say, XYZ Lexus, that's an entire business. So if I call that phone number and I'm talking to somebody, I want them to own the process or own my experience because I'm reaching out to them as a customer. And so for us, we have to think about that in our dealerships. Training cannot be done in a silo. It can't be sales is going to get this one kind of approach, service is going to get this one kind of approach. You have to have a holistic experience that expands across everything.
100%. I mean, when you're looking at
So Ian,
Amazon,
I
yeah, go ahead.
gotta put you into the elephant in the room question.
Yeah. When you look at Amazon, and I know we've had this, we're going to change it for the better discussion before. I mean, I think if I'm thinking back 4 years, maybe we had our first digital retail discussion. And I know when it came out, it was like, oh, this is going to change everything, and everyone's going to do this, and they're not going to go to dealerships anymore, and it's all going to be beautiful, and everything's wonderful. And we had these shows where we had different digital retail companies on, not to say they're good or bad, and they were all saying, yeah, we got it all handled. And to me, that was kind of Web 2.0. And then now we got Amazon going, let me at it. I'm gonna fix it. Do you think this is going to be a game changer, or do you think this is going to move the needle that, I don't know, 5%, where I think it's digital retail initially moved it? I think it was like 3 to 5% go through the process. Do you think Amazon can really handle this, or is it just another digital retail idea that we're trying on? I mean, I don't know. I'm just curious. Let's start with April on this one. I'm curious. You're always talking about things integrating. So
Yeah, it's funny because I've had so many people reach out to me the last few days since this first came out, and of course, there's a lot of opinions of panic, right? Like, oh my gosh, like look at this. This is where this is going. I personally think there's there's more advantages in this partnership than there are disadvantages. And the reason being is that I think that it will be like every other digital retailing tool out there that every other third-party company has put out there. I just think Amazon is a little bit cleaner, and it'll be used as a shopping tool. I actually do not foresee that the majority of people will go through the process in its completion because they will still be the dealer. There's a reason that digital retailing has not gotten to the point of saying, buy my car, I show up, I pick it up. There will be some people that will work for, but it still will not work for the majority of people. The majority of people still need a human to talk about the options, to go through the process, to go through the financing, to negotiate on the trade, all the different things that customers want to do that they say they don't want to do in a survey, but in reality, they absolutely do want to do. Now, there's some advantages I think that Amazon brings that people aren't thinking of. One of the biggest ones is the SEO value. I think Amazon is a third-party company to a dealership on steroids. I think there will be an unintended advantage that will come to the OEMs that are getting first in this space as far as bringing consideration to their models. So that I think is going to be an interesting spin on it. But do I foresee that this suddenly is going to become customers buying their cars on Amazon and just picking them up at the dealership? That I don't. I think it's going to be an amazing shopping tool, just like all the other ones that have been out there. I mean, I'm sorry, but this has been going on for like 15 years now. We've had the AutoHub. Every third party has their own form of this process already been going on for well over a decade. So no, I don't think this is going to be something so over the top. The ones that I think should be scared are actually the other third parties, because I think that Amazon just has a much larger customer base, and they dominate that SEO space, that I think it could be hindersome to the other third parties.
So kind of like the Walmart model or these other companies we've had on that sell direct. But what do you think from an OEM point of view? I mean, is Amazon going to get paid on the customer acquisition? Are they going to get paid on delivery? I mean, what's that mean for a dealer? Like, I know Ford talked about this, but I don't know. Like, what do you think?
Well, so as it sits right now, the dealers are still going to be the final stopping place. So the dealers are still going to have that last spot to interact with the customer. This is going to be a very slow rollout too. I'm not sure if all the information has really been put out there, but this is a beta that's going on through the entire next year. There are only 18 dealers in the country that are participating.
Really?
We're going to work through all the nooks and crannies.
Yeah.
And my guess is by the time they hit the end of it, this is my prediction as we sit here today, they are also going to all realize that it is an amazing shopping tool and that there are very few people that will go all the way through it. And I would think that there will be some adjustments to the current thought process before we hit 2025. That's just, the history in the past of going through a lot of these betas with different companies over the last, 15 plus years, I will tell you that that's where I see this thing kind of headed and going. I hope they hit the finish line in some regards, because again, I think it's a great place for shopping. Even when we buy locally through a local company now, a lot of us still end up shopping on Amazon. We Google search something and the first thing that pops up is Amazon. We click the link, we're in Amazon, and now we're suddenly looking at a lot of different things. Even if I want to go and touch and feel that product, I'm still going to end up going to the store in a lot of cases, Amazon first and then going to the store. So I personally think it's great. I don't think it's going to be this revolutionary thing where this is where it's going to end up. I think it's a good shopping tool. It's a good place for, cars to be for consideration for branding. And I don't think the dealer's participation in that. I think the OEM's responsibility and consideration for their advertising, that's where the money should be going to. This shouldn't be charged to the individual dealer as it comes down. And drop shipping and stuff has been going on for years. I mean, I've been doing drop ship deliveries for OEMs for a bazillion years. I don't think this is really any different.
Right. Thanks for that, Doug. I mean, obviously they're a big gorilla competitor to you. What do you think?
Well,
Small gorilla.
I think there's a lot that we don't know. And I think that all these reactions need to perhaps be tempered. Here's what we do know. Hyundai's the first manufacturer, and I'm assuming others will be on it, I don't know. And Hyundai is notorious for having the worst customer satisfaction. Their ratings are horrible, so they can only go up. At the same time, it seems like the timing is kind of interesting. I mean, if you think about it, COVID educated everybody on how to buy online, everything else. So it seems only natural that Amazon would jump in and say, well, then let's figure out how we can do a car online. I think, the point of ease is important. When you ask anybody, what makes Amazon special? It seems to be, well, it's really easy. And it's not necessarily the cheapest, but it's the easiest. So I like that. And if we can bring the ease to buying a car, great. What's interesting to me is there's two things that stand out to me. One is this going to be the shot that finally resonates with dealers where they say, you better get your act together as far as your online to in-store transition, how you're selling cars. Maybe this is the wake-up call that the industry needs. And the other question, and I want to throw this out to this panel of people is, assuming that you can't negotiate on Amazon, and you can't, do you think this is going to be a gateway drug to more and more dealers going one price and just eliminating negotiation altogether? Or I'm curious what you all think about that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Jump on answering that.
Of course you can.
Goes back to what Sarah was saying just a bit ago about the fight within the dealership model. And I'll probably be unpopular in saying this, but dealerships need to be profitable. There's a lot of expense that goes into being and operating a dealer. And the OEMs over and over have taken the margin between MSRP and invoice to such a small amount. So much so that if there weren't those accessories, if there weren't those added things, if we couldn't hold on the trade and we couldn't make money in finance, there are some products that we have that literally have a $30 markup. There's $30 between MSRP and invoice. So I agree that I think a one price model is probably the way that it should go to help eliminate this. But at the same token, OEMs then have to, realize that and be able to give a fair profit on a per car basis to the dealers in order for that to make sense. Otherwise, this fighting and grinding is never really going to change because the dealers need to do that in order to be profitable in a lot of cases. So that's the one thing that I just wanted to add. I totally agree with everybody, but I also think the partnership and the understanding of how do we get there has to come from all parties and can't just be put just on the dealer.
Yeah, that's a great thought. I mean, Sarah, part of it they said is you can choose the dealer. So I'm assuming there's going to be some price discussion, but who knows, right? I mean, I don't know, but what do you think?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, just thinking about all of retail across the service department, across sales, across every facet of customer decisions that happen in a dealership, the customer has always been in control. That's the reality of what it means when a customer chooses to service their car with a dealer or they choose to buy a car with a dealer. That customer has always had the ultimate choice. What we've done in dealerships is we have tried to take that choice back by implementing a lot of all these extra processes, like, well, you got to go here first, or you got to come and see the car first before you can buy it. Yes, you can get to this point online, but then you got to finish the paperwork in person, and then you got to go to finance for that paperwork, and then, oh, you want to buy tires? Well, you're going to have to go and do this. And we put all these unnecessary hoops in the process. And the thing is, a customer will go through the points of that process to the point that they suddenly go, enough. I'm done with that process. Who can do it better? Who can be that one that makes it easier? And so while Amazon, this whole entire buying experience, I think customers are going to choose if that's the way that they want to buy a car. They're going to still maintain that choice. What we have to do within the dealership is decide, how do we equip our people to be best equipped to adapt to that choice? So how do we train them to recognize when a customer is saying something, okay, this is the way that they want to buy the car, this is the way they want to service the car, here's how I can adapt the processes to meet the customer where they want to do it. I don't know what the numbers are going to be. It could be 2% of people choose to go through the Amazon process. It could be 80%. It's hard for us to predict it, but what we just have to keep in mind about the entire thing is that customers have always, in every single transaction that's ever happened in a dealership, it's always been their choice. It's always been their choice to come and service their vehicle with us. We have to get out of our own way and empower our people to create the processes that best meet what the customer market indicates is the way that they want to do it.
That's great.
But Sarah, it's still gonna come down to people, because we've already seen a one price process. It was called Saturn, and that didn't turn out so good. And I can remember when I was a caddy dealer, they had the XLR, I'm not making this up, available in purple, and you could buy it through Neiman Marcus, straight through Neiman Marcus. We've seen these variants before. How do we make these people better? We teach them to listen. Rather than focus on speaking, to actually listening and relating to their customer and empathizing. That's always been the answer to all the problems that we have, and that always seems to be the impediment. Because, you know, what do we do in most training? Let's memorize these stupid robotic phrases and not listen to our customer.
Well, you know what's gonna stand in the way too, is the entrepreneurial spirit of this beta test. Because you've got April, you said there's 18 dealers, is there? Whatever the number of dealers. So somebody's gonna say, okay, so we're gonna use a locale of Denver. One of these dealers is in Denver. So they're gonna go online, the customer's gonna do the Amazon thing, and they're gonna say, well, wow, this guy's in whatever, a suburb of Denver. I'm gonna go to one near me and say, hey, I was just on Amazon. Dealer X here is from the Amazon thing. I've got a price for this. The entrepreneurial spirit will come in and say, oh, no problem at all. Listen, we're going to take care of this. We're going to do this, and this. And it's just get the business. So that may stand in the way of that thing. Sorry.
Well, and also at the end of the day, every third party is always allowed for the customer to choose their dealer. Every one of them. You plug in your zip code, it auto defaults to usually 3, but you can choose just one. You can choose one that's not even there. Almost every third party has been doing this stuff for, like say 10, 15 years. There's not really that big of a difference other than the fact that it's the big Amazon, the big word Amazon is coming with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think we left Peter out. So go ahead, Peter. What's your thought on this?
So I look back to I'm going to go back to 2018 when subscription model purchases became the new buzzword, and the manufacturers went out there and put out subscription models, and they said, okay, And I'm gonna use Volvo for example. Volvo said, we're gonna offer it on these two cars, and it's gonna be $700 a month, and you're gonna get the choice of your car, and it's a 2-year lease, and you can extend it for 1 extra year after that, but you can change 3 times during that term, and we're gonna pay for all your maintenance, we're gonna pay for your insurance, we're gonna pay for your snow tires, we're gonna pay for everything, and it's all gonna be included for $700 a month. And the dealer said, well, who gets compensated? Well, we'll compensate you. We'll give you a commission for selling them. Well, we're not selling them. You're selling them. So we got a commission. In all of Canada, 2 cars were put on the subscription model. That was the take by the customers. Why? Because the customer came into the dealership and said, hey, you know what? I can buy an S60 for $700 a month under this program. And he said, how often do you want to change your color? Not very often. Okay. So if I put you on a 48-month lease and charge you $500 a month and threw in snow tires, what would you do? I'll take the $500 a month program. So we killed self-sabotage the program ourselves, not thinking about the CPOs, not thinking about anything down the line. We as dealers, we killed it. It was one of the greatest programs out there, but we decided to shoot it before it even got off the ground.
Because nobody's going to tell me what to do.
When we look at the Amazon model could be one of the best programs out there. And we just have to understand people want this opportunity. It doesn't mean that everyone's going to buy off Amazon. It doesn't mean that it's just another, and Larry says it a lot. Give them multiple choices and allow them to make that decision. And one of the topics I always used when I was in the sales chair was, I don't care how you purchase this car, cash, finance, lease, pay for it in Fruit Loops for all I care. As long as I can convert it to legal tender, I'm good. And if it's Fruit Loops, I'm really good because I'm not allowed them at home. So when you look at it, it is that's what we have to do. We have to open up that choice to people. We're in a people business. We have to serve those people. Those people, our customers, our guests, pay our salaries. It's not the dealership, it's not the manufacturer, it's the people that are walking in that door. Treat them with respect and give them the option, give them the information, and allow them to make that decision. End of story.
I agree with that 100%. Jeff?
So, I have my pre-planned questions, including a switch to EV, but I want to stay on this thing here because the sound of it is this Amazon thing, and it was the last part of that question before. This Amazon thing may be the biggest risk to it, first of all, as dealers. Let's not kid each other here. The biggest risk to anything. Doug, you're a big proponent of a fixed price thing on a car, but the bottom line is if somebody walks in and says you're a Toyota dealer, because Toyota still is a little bit better than everybody else, and XYZ Toyota is going to sell me this BZ4X. They're giving me $500 off, and you've now got 6 of them, and you've agreed not to amongst all your buddies. Is this just another quirky idea that we're going to kibosh the Amazon? Doug.
Is the Amazon thing a quirky idea that we're going to kibosh?
Yep.
That's your question? I have no idea. It's too new to rate. I mean, it's coming out of left field, and so who knows? Again, I think that to me, this is the impetus for dealerships to take a hard look at how they're treating customers and react accordingly. I mean, you brought up the point, or someone brought up the point of, I got a price on Amazon, but I went to this dealer and he said, okay, and I'm going to do this, and this, and that's what I'm going to, and I'll end up getting the deal anyway, instead of the Amazon store. Well, that may be the case, but the fact is, what drove the customer to that store in the first place? And if you've got a better dealership experience, that trumps everything in my mind, regardless of if you're buying at Amazon or you're buying through a third-party digital retailing tour, or if you're a fresh up at a dealership, the bottom line is, if your experience is better, people will pay more for it anyway. I mean, it happens all the time, so focus on that. And is Amazon gonna work? I don't know, nobody knows. I kind of hope it does, just because of what it could do from a change perspective. And to counter what you said, we're not a one price company. No, we're about changing the customer's, changing the customer's perception of buying a car at a dealership. That's what drives A to Z Sync. That's what should drive every dealer and every vendor is, let's make a better experience no matter where you start. If you end up in my store, or I end up being lucky enough to get your business, I earned it because I treated you the way you wanted to be treated, not the way I thought that you should be treated.
Exactly. I agree 100% with that. And providing that true omni-channel experience that the customer is looking for. They don't want to start and stop and start and stop and start and stop. They want one fluid choice. Once they give you your information through the digital retailing portal, they expect you to have every step of the journey that they've been on. They want to adapt to a new process of selling. And the one thing about the Amazon model, if anyone thought that Amazon was not going to get into the car business, they were greatly mistaken. I personally thought they'd buy Carvana when Carvana started faltering, because that was the greatest buy out there. And we're all looking at consolidation of the marketplace. I thought they would jump on it. I really did. And I thought that would be their first stop to enter into the market.
Yeah, I think I want to just jump on it really quick. I think it's time for dealers to quit separating online and in-store and just create an experience. Period. End of story. It doesn't matter. They're the same. You're just buying a car from us. If you start here or you start here, doesn't matter. It's one thing. We've got to quit bifurcating these things and just create one single experience.
I totally agree with you on that point. But the biggest thing that dealers, I think, are struggling with right now in that whole approach is turnover. So you've got all these newish employees that are new to the dealership that haven't lived a lot of, the realities of what many of us have been in retail for 10 plus years. They got in during COVID or after. So they've had a completely different process of selling or even like helping with that transaction piece. So we have to also think about the training that goes into those conversations to make it easier. And so that's honestly, I think, one of the biggest hurdles is there's so many individuals that are begging to understand the retail environment as it pertains to selling a car. There's individuals that are coming from hospitality and all these other industries that are amazing talents.
Right.
But the dealership goes, I don't know if I want to invest in training right now. And we got to shift that approach. It's too valuable right now in that discussion.
Exactly.
But to the discussion around omni-channel, I mean, really, it's about that road to the sale, which may be over 100 years old now, is slightly newer, I guess, in some respects. That road to the sale is no longer current, because you have to look at it and say, okay, well, where's that customer starting the process today? But more importantly, where do they want to go with the process? And I think Amazon's going to jump into that and probably make it interesting. But at the end of the day, if that customer is telling you, listen, I don't want to spend 8 hours around a dealership, is that number a half an hour? Is it 2 hours? Is it 3 hours? I don't know, right? So it's really a question of where is that customer in the process? Now, we all know that those customers who used to visit 5 stores visit 1. So the question is, how can you make that process better in your store, but more importantly, tailor to that individual? And that's what I think hospitality could teach the auto industry. I mean, when you look at, big organizations that have to deal with customers of all types and make that process better for them, I think we could learn a lot from that. Anyway, Jeff, sorry.
No, not a problem. It's funny because we're kind of hitting the nail on the head. If you ever watch Larry's training, and Larry's training is not the Larry omni-channel process in doing this. He doesn't throw up acronyms. He doesn't throw up, all these roadmaps to a sale. He deals with just basic person-to-person, relationships. And the fact is that treating people right is the key. When we were in Phoenix, or Scottsdale, excuse me for Scottsdalians, the fact is, I had some of the best restaurant experiences I ever had there. And there's one restaurant, I can't remember what it was called, Ian, you might remember, it was that big one where we met Larry, you might remember that. Anyway, it was a great big restaurant. There must have been 100 staff. And everybody took care of you. They didn't know their stuff. They didn't know where everything was, because you know what? Restaurants are worse than car dealers for new people. But they all were infected with take care of the customer. And that is the difference. I think we're missing the point, and we have new people. And the one thing about Amazon is it has a reputation for taking care of customers. I buy stuff on Amazon. My wife bought a whole bunch of stuff on Amazon. My daughter got married a few months ago, and she got a whole bunch of stuff there that would have been great for all the decor and everything else. We did the return thing inside the 30 days, a whole bunch of stuff we didn't need. And then we forgot to send it back. I sent it back at 60 days. And guess what? I got my money back, even though I was told I couldn't. Imagine that in a dealership. And I think that's one thing that Amazon is going to affect us. And that's the one thing we're going to have to get on board. And I have to say this, because I will turn this over to April, because she's got the dealer standpoint on it. But as a used car dealer, I'm excited to post used cars on Amazon. I'll tell you right now. April.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And so I'm going to circle back to a few comments. So Peter, the reason I think Amazon didn't buy Carvana is because it was used cars. I think that used cars brings a slew of additional hoops and hurdles, and it's actually easier and better for Amazon to work those out with new cars. Because with new cars, the only thing they really have to deal with is going to be the signing of the DMV paperwork and having the dealer take that part on. So that was something that Carvana obviously had. One of the biggest problems they had was the fact that they couldn't get the title work done. So having a new car, that means that I have an MSO, so I have that already, boom, check mark done, absolutely must have. And I have a dealer partnership where they can go into the dealership and get that part done. That will allow them to work some of this stuff out. I agree. I like the idea that used cars, it becomes another great third party. But I think that with used cars, we have a slew of additional issues that go into that regarding reconditioning, regarding, okay, what is the expectation of the customer when they show up? Do they have the option to say, never mind, I'm not going to take this car because it smells bad? What happens when they don't have the title? Because we all know that vehicles get put out for sale prior to always having the title, secured from the other person, because of the feeds and the way that things are set up. So I think that this is the right approach for Amazon, is to go through this phase one, new cars, because new cars are a lot easier to work through some of those hoops and hurdles that we won't have to deal with regard to used cars, where now we're talking about how do you have a platform on a national platform that in all reality, you're going to have different warranties, different laws, state law applicabilities, all these different things that are going to kind of muddy those waters for Amazon. So I'm not surprised that they didn't buy it. I know there's a lot of talk about that. Also, the comment about that our industry, is not the same road to the sale. I actually think it's the exact same road to the sale. The difference is where it's happening that is different. And the only thing that we need to adjust is our communication to ensure the baton toss from the meet and greet that is now not happening at the dealership, but happening online, that flow from the meet and greet to the sell yourself, to sell your dealership, to build rapport, to qualify needs, that the baton toss through those steps is happening. That comes from communication. So we need to do training, like Sarah said. I mean, the real key is making sure that our people understand how that process looks, and that it has different looks, and how we can communicate through that process to ensure the customer gets the right experience. But ultimately, and Larry talks about this all the time, it has nothing to do with any of it if I'm not one human treating another human like a human. That's really, you talked about the restaurant experience. All that matters is that I'm trying. It's not that I'm perfect. It's that I'm obviously there doing everything I can to help you. That's all that matters. And it doesn't matter whether I'm on the phone, I'm doing a typey type, I'm doing a Zoom, or I'm face to face. I need to treat humans the way I want to be treated. Period. End of discussion. And it sounds crazy that we need to train people to do that, but we do. We absolutely do. And then if we want our people to act that way, then we need to treat our people that way as managers. So if we want our employees to treat our customers that way, are we treating our employees that way? And that's where it has to start. And as long as we're willing to do all of that, I think that this is all a positive thing. Amazon's bringing just another amazing third party to our space that will help us sell more cars. But do I think they're going to take anything away? I don't, because again, I still think people sell cars, not computers.
Actually, I thought of something the other day too about just where we're going here with the EVs and all that stuff. And, you know, when is it going to be that you're going to no longer get software support on your EV?
Well, so here's an interesting thing. That's the proof to just back up the statement I just said, right? Everyone's been scared the last couple of years that, you know, the Amazon of the world and the OEMs are going to go direct sale, this, that, and the other. Well, let's look at how many EVs are piling up on dealership lots and who is going to get those vehicles on the road? The dealer, the salesman. The salesman is the only one now out there fighting the good fight, having the conversation with the customer on whether they want to consider it. They are going to be the reason that those EVs end up in customers' driveways and garages, and it will never be the OEM from that standpoint. We are partners. We have to remember that we will always be partners because humans do human things. And that's just what it really boils down to.
And piling on that, a couple of things. One, April, you'd be amazed how many stores reach out to us and say, do you guys have a road to the sale chart you can share with us? We don't have one. But the second thing is along EVs, in my mind, the dealership, and it all comes back to the dealership that treats the customer right, that does everything you outlined, April, is invariably going to be the dealership that people go to say, can you teach me about EVs? Because I don't know anything. I was on a phone call on a Zoom with my family last night, and everybody's clueless on EVs. They have no idea what's going on. They know nothing, and that's the vast majority. So again, so it all ties into, you know, what Larry says all the time, which is treat them like human, be nice to them, and everything else will flow.
You know, we had a discussion with, I think it was Don Bray at Used Car Week, and he has a used car lot. And a young man came in, wanted to buy a Maserati from him, and he talked the kid out of it. And his dad called him and said, I want to thank you for talking my kid out of buying this used Maserati. That would have been the worst decision he ever made in his life. And by the way, I need some cars for myself, and I'm going to come help him buy a reasonable car. And I sat there and I said, exactly. At the end of the day, sometimes it's not selling something that because it makes a lot of sense. If anyone wants the EV thing, I can send it to him.
The first thing I said to Don after he bought that Maserati, what were you thinking? I mean, he's been lucky because he's had it like 3.5 months and it hasn't cost him any money. And I just say, just like those EVs, April, all those EVs sitting on the lot, somebody's forgetting to go and plug them in. And they're going to get that one Mustang Mach-E that fell through the cracks, because they never do in retail, do they? And it's been there for 170 days. Thanks, Sarah. Been there for 170 days, and it's been unplugged. And they're going to make a deal on it, and oh my golly gee willikers, it won't start. It won't charge. What's going on here? Ford is going to say, we need a charging chart. I had that with BMWs that were EVs. Where's your charging chart? Sorry, the battery's toast and the computers are toaster.
Anyway, we're out of time, Jeff. So thanks very much, everybody. And if you want that battery chart that's in the chat, just send me an email. I'm happy to send it to you. It's pretty interesting. Just the cost of batteries based on vehicle value. It's kind of interesting. Anyway.
It's an interesting world. And, you know, my final saying, Doug, is or Sarah, April, you said we're humans? I don't know, because if you've ever seen anybody do the robot dance, we're just trying to be robots.
April,
Alright.
good seeing you again. It's been a while.
Thanks.
Good to see you all.
Yeah.
Have a great Monday.
Yep,
Happy
you-
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Great seeing
Yeah.
everyone. Bye.
Oh la la. What? Thanks for joining us. It was a great show, and follow us anywhere you would like on your favorite podcast, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course on our YouTube, or subscribe to our own channel.